As Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from this scourge of drug addiction.
The house that should never have been quiet. At dawn, neighborhoods are supposed to be ordinary. Lawns wet with sprinkler mist, curtains half drawn. A calm that reassures people the system is working. On this morning, in Cobb County, Georgia, that calm was a lie. At 5:42 a.m., unmarked vehicles rolled to a stop outside a tidy suburban home. No sirens, no shouting, just doors opening and boots finding pavement. Federal agents moved with the certainty of people who already knew the ending of the story. The warrant wasn't a guess, it was a conclusion. Inside, the house looked like thousands of others. Family photographs, framed certificates, a flag folded with ceremonial precision. The man who lived here wore a robe by day and decided the fate of defendants by night. He was trusted to weigh truth, apply law, and protect the public interest. A battering ram met a steel-reinforced door in the basement. The crack echoed through the house like thunder. Behind a false wall, agents found what no courtroom should ever shelter: tightly wrapped bricks of heroin stacked with inventory neatness. 20 pounds. Nearby, sealed bundles of cash totaling millions, weapons arranged not for sport or protection, but for enforcement. The shock wasn't the drugs. America has seen drugs before. The shock was where they were hidden. On an unlocked phone, investigators discovered encrypted conversations with a cartel intermediary operating out of northern South America. The messages read like logistics memos, shipment windows, routes, delays, and something far worse, discussions of future court outcomes. Rulings planned in advance, warrants slowed, cases softened. This was not coercion. There were no threats, no desperation. It was partnership. For years, communities argue about where corruption begins: on the street, at the border, in shadowy warehouses. This case suggested something far more unsettling: that corruption can wear a badge of respectability, sit behind a bench, and stamp documents with authority. By mid-morning, the name of Judge Marcus Hale was sealed into federal filings, not as a victim, not as a bystander, as a node. As news spread, disbelief followed. Judges aren't supposed to be the story. They are the line that separates chaos from order. When that line bends, everything behind it tilts. What agents suspected was that the drugs were only the surface. The house raid wasn't the end of an investigation. It was the beginning of a reckoning. And as dawn gave way to daylight, the quiet neighborhood learned a truth the country would soon face. Sometimes the most dangerous doors are the ones we never expect to open. The ledger behind the robe. When investigators expanded beyond the house, the story widened rapidly. Financial analysts followed the money the way surgeons follow blood flow, and what they found was not random, it was engineered. Over 6 years, more than $40 million had moved through a web of shell companies scattered across U.S. states and offshore jurisdictions. These companies had no staff, no products, no purpose beyond laundering profit. They existed on paper and vanished into spreadsheets, designed to look legitimate at a glance and invisible at speed. Funds arrived labeled as consulting fees and investment returns. They left as property purchases, campaign donations, luxury goods, and silent transfers to associates. Each transaction alone looked ordinary. Together, they formed a machine. Encrypted messages filled in the gaps. They referenced shipment volumes by code. They discussed clear weeks when inspections would stall. They coordinated calendar entries disguised as lunches, golf outings, and routine reviews, meetings that aligned precisely with narcotics movements. Investigators realized something critical. The judge wasn't opening doors after the fact, he was building corridors in advance. Court records showed a pattern of unusual dismissals, evidence excluded on narrow technicalities, warrants delayed by days that mattered, defendants linked to the network receiving inexplicably favorable outcomes. It was law as camouflage. The moral damage was heavier than the financial one. Every decision that smoothed a shipment also smoothed the spread of addiction. Every delayed inspection translated into poison reaching neighborhoods, schools, and hospitals. As analysts mapped relationships, other names surfaced: municipal officials, contractors, law enforcement officers. Some were paid for silence, others for action, all for access. This wasn't corruption from the outside pressing in, it was rot growing inside institutions meant to resist it. By the time prosecutors prepared the next move, the case had outgrown one man. It had become a system-level breach. The question was no longer whether to act, but how fast. Operation Crosscut. The response came at once and everywhere. At dawn on a Thursday, federal teams executed coordinated warrants across 7 states. No press alerts, no staged announcements, just synchronized movement designed to sever a pipeline before it could reroute. In Savannah, agents entered riverfront warehouses that looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, they found packaging equipment, chemical residue, and logs tracing shipments back to overseas ports. Drones sealed exits as suspects ran between pallets and steel doors slammed shut. In Houston, a small industrial suite served as a conversion point. The air burned with chemical sting. Armed guards attempted to flee across gravel lanes, but were intercepted by canine units within seconds. In New Jersey, the operation turned chaotic. Brokers operating out of a trucking hub scattered between trailers. Thermal imaging located one suspect hiding inside a refrigerated container. The doors opened to cold air in handcuffs. Across all sites, the numbers rose quickly. Metric tons of narcotics seized, hundreds of firearms recovered, cash, gold, and financial instruments cataloged under fluorescent light. But the most valuable seizure wasn't physical. In a locked office, agents found a filing cabinet of schedules, monthly payment charts, coded references, instructions for officials across counties. On one page, a note cut through everything. Guaranteed clearance. Do not deviate. It tied the network back to its source. Operation Crosscut wasn't about spectacle, it was about interruption. And for the first time in years, the flow stopped. When trust breaks. Public reaction was immediate and fractured. Helicopters hovered, courthouses filled with reporters. Communities struggled to reconcile familiar faces with federal affidavits. Protests formed outside government buildings. Some demanded accountability, others demanded answers. Inside, resignations followed. Emergency sessions stretched late into the night. Officials argued, unions issued statements, lawyers warned restraint, but the evidence kept expanding. Bank records, emails, encrypted notes, the story repeated across jurisdictions. Authority exchanged for access, silence bought with routine transfers. This wasn't a failure of one office, it was a warning about what happens when oversight sleeps. For residents, the betrayal cut deeply. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. Courts paused. Agencies audited themselves in public view. Faith in institutions wavered. Yet something else happened too. People paid attention, and attention is dangerous to corruption. Exposure or silence. By week end, prosecutors prepared indictments for hundreds. Some cooperated, others stayed silent. Documentation spoke louder than denials. The physical evidence filled warehouses. The human cost filled communities. Judge Marcus Hale sat in custody, his courtroom empty, the bench polished, the flags unmoved. Authority without its mask. This case wasn't about drugs alone. It was about systems, about what happens when the guardians of order become its breach. Corruption thrives where silence lives. Accountability grows where exposure begins.
The lesson was stark. Drugs do not simply arrive. They travel through systems built by people. When those people sell access, the damage reaches far beyond any shipment. What ended this network wasn't chance. It was attention, coordination, and refusal to look away. And that choice, whether to look away or look closer, belongs to all of us. Because when the law bends, the cost is not measured in pounds or dollars. It's measured in trust. And trust, once lost, demands truth to return.